and welcome to Detroit Comics Party, episode 41. Today our guest is artist Franklin Jonas.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, would you like to tell us a little about your artistry, sir?
Well, I've been doing art forever, since I was a kid. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working on the Star Project, which basically are laser-cut steel stars, and I spray paint them. But they don't look like spray paint, and they don't look like steel. They look like they've been printed or machined. And I've been working on that since, I believe, 2011. And I've been doing them ever since.
Since TV is a non-visual medium, would you be able to describe what the finished product looks like? Is it flat, or are you like cutting and then arranging into a 3D shape?
They're flat, but sometimes I arrange them into configurations to cover a whole wall. So I've done installations where I've had hundreds and hundreds of them sort of in a grid configuration. I've done them so that they look like they're larger stars made of smaller stars. I've done them so they look like they're diamonds. So I've done different things, and I have a lot of concepts that I'd like to try in the future. But they're still flat, although some of them look like they're three-dimensional just because of the design and the color.
Cool. We were trying to describe what your work is earlier today, and some of the images that I've seen it just seems like one piece. Even if it's hundreds of stars, the one wall seems like a single piece. But if you were to buy your work, you'd buy it one at a time? Or I guess if you're a gallery, you'd get 100 of them?
Well, the way that it worked is I did Red Bull House of Art back in 2012. I was part of Cycle 1. If you don't know what Red Bull is, the Detroit Red Bull House of Art is the space that Red Bull pays for. And what they do is they invite artists to do projects. They give them money. They pay for all their supplies. They give them studio space for like 3 months, and then they give you a show. And the artist gets to keep all of the profits. So it's the best deal out there. And you get as much Red Bull as you want. Nice. All the new flavors. Your head
How many
will
artists
explode.
have died there?
That's the thing. Well, it doesn't, because Red Bull actually, people don't know this, but it actually kind of makes you into a zombie. So that you're impregnable, you cannot be killed. It's great. But,
or impregnated.
But yeah, they give it away, and they have all these new flavors. It's nonstop. So I did Red Bull Cycle 1, and I decided to do 360 stars for Red Bull. Each of them were 12 inches across. So that was a lot. Back then, I was selling them separately. You could buy however many you wanted, and all of them sold, crazy enough. Nowadays, I like to do whole walls, and I like to sell whole walls. But I might be doing some smaller sets out of the studio pretty soon. So I'll reserve them for you guys, and just cool. Send me a blank check. I'll fill out.
Do you get commissioned to do like a particular piece, or like do you change the design based on who the client is or where it's going to be installed?
Yeah, I've done commissions. The last commission that I did, which was last year, was the new children's hospital in Troy. It's that hospital. It looks like it's made out of giant Lego bricks.
I've been in there. I shot some video for the city. In there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So they gave me the whole emergency area. So I have 10 giant stars. They're about 3 feet across, each one of them. And I was lucky because a friend of mine, Nathan Forbes, purchased them and then donated them. And he's also done that for me over at Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor as well. I had, I think, 72 smaller pieces in Mott.
Wow.
So that's good really when you have a benefactor that will do that.
Yeah.
And the hospital loves it, and the kids love it, and I get a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback.
I was going to say, for such a sad place, it's got some happy walls.
That's the thing. People are like, "Where's your art?" And I'm like, New Children's Hospital, Troy, Mott. So I hope you never have to go there. But if you have a kid and he gets hurt, take him to that hospital so you can see that. Isn't that horrible? So, if you need a stitch or two, if you need a stitch or two, go to the Troy Children's Hospital. It's the best place. They get the best art there. It's like, what are you talking about? The kids, they'll look at the art. They won't even know that they're bleeding.
They'll love it.
It's fine. But it's actually a really nice hospital. The whole decor ties in with the art. They have like these RGB LED lighting system that always change color. They have these gels on the windows, so the windows are different colors. They have different color furniture, carpet, accessories. So it was the perfect match.
Wow.
So I really
all of
lucked
those
out.
aspects actually made it like the worst place to try to shoot a video too, because it's like the light is like changing.
Were you having trouble
constantly. You're
white
like,
balancing, and it was just a nightmare? So what were you
looks
shooting
really
there?
cool.
What were you shooting over there?
Oh, it was just a project for the city. They did a project about different businesses.
That's pretty
in the-
cool though,
in
and
the
they
city.
they had a really cool opening for that too. It was really hoity-toity. I had to wear like a tux and everything, but it was really fancy. But yeah, it's when things like that happen. They basically, whoever's buying it basically lets you do pretty much whatever you want, but you got to go there first. I was there when it was under construction. I was measuring walls. I had to coordinate with their art advisor, and there were some things that I wanted to do, and they were like, yeah, but this is going to go there. There's going to be a big screen over there. You can't do that. So
I don't care if it interferes with the X-ray
yeah,
machine.
it's the creative vision. We have to knock a wall down. It comes first. No, you have to be flexible. And then they give you blueprints. And then a week later, they give you different blueprints.
Right.
And then a week later, they give you different blueprints. And it keeps changing. And so you're constantly going to the site. I even did that with Red Bull because in the beginning, we were cycle 1 and there were no walls. It was a basement cavern of an old brewery, EB Brewery and Lofts. And there were even tunnels that run under the street that they used to use during Prohibition to smuggle booze. And that was all open, and it smelled really funky down there because they used to throw raves. And they were building the walls up into 2 days prior to our opening.
Yikes.
And I couldn't even hang half of my stuff. And then there was a situation where there were emergency lights right in the middle of the wall. We were like, these have to be moved. And the union electrician was like, nope. And then, the head of Red Bull was like, yeah, move them. So I was literally watching paint dry. And I couldn't do it. So it was crazy. Because I'm the type of artist that I like to do everything way ahead of time. I don't like to do last minute stuff. But most people that I work with like to do last minute stuff. And last minute stuff means 48 hours straight of working and not sleeping, which is not fun. Unless you take an enhancer. But I don't like to work that way.
How did you get into doing the pieces that you're doing now? Like, were you doing any other like laser cut stuff, or was that just a technique that you needed to be able to make what you wanted to make?
When I first started doing art out of the studio back in the early 90s, I really wanted to get into advanced fabrication techniques, and you couldn't because back then the economy was doing fine. The automotive industry were the ones that had a monopoly on any kind of laser cutting machine, CNC, ODM, whatever kind of technology, they had it, and people like you and me could not have access to it, period. It was impossible. When all of that collapsed, they were desperate for clients. And so I started getting into laser cutting and CNC machining. And for the Star Project, I was trying to think of some kind of an iconic shape that I could both use as art and also possibly translate into fashion and homewares, which is something I'm working on now. I'm trying to get off the ground. So I thought, okay, what would be really substantial for the collector? Steel. Not paper, not wood, but steel. What would be something that's not too much of a wall commitment? 1 foot. What would be affordable? $100 to $150 back then. So I researched it, and I researched all the different kinds of metals that I would need. I got introduced to a fabricator, a prototype design in Tecumseh, Michigan. If you don't know where Tecumseh is, it's outside of Ann Arbor. It's where the skydivers are.
Okay.
It's like every day you look up in the sky, you'll see people jumping out of planes.
People falling out of the sky.
It's pretty cool.
constantly.
It makes me almost want to do that, but not quite. So I'm content to watch, and I'm like, I hope the parachute opens. And I mean, it's like that every day. You see people during the summer. It's like constant skydiving.
Whoa.
But yeah, prototype design. They're my fabricators. They have all kinds of lasers and equipment, and that's where I got it done. And So now what I have is this iconic shape that I'm re-exploring, and I'm doing things to it that haven't been done before, and people enjoy it, and I like doing it. But I also do have other plans for it, because I really think that it would translate to men's dress shirts, leather jackets for women, jeans, homewares, things like that. I don't know if that's going to happen. I would like it to happen. So it was kind of, I thought way ahead. I thought many moves ahead, art and then other things, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. No. When I was first starting out as an artist, that was called selling out.
Yeah.
And now it's like, please happen. That's fine, because that's basically, art is everywhere and art is everything. And if you're closed-minded and don't see it that way, then you're missing out. So you have to have it translate into other avenues for sure.
And I think there's whatever the memory of the art scene was very elite and very exclusive, and it was like, this is our new hero and his paintings will be on the walls of the gallery, and that's what it was. Where now I think, but maybe that person's vision was only, I am a painter, here are my paintings, where I think now one's art isn't just, this is my star or this is my canvas. It's, the art is the entire, almost business plan about an object or about a thing.
That's how I try to make it.
Yeah.
The downside of that is that you're dealing with drama. Business is extremely difficult. It's not fun at all. And I've seen probably over 100 artists over the last few decades quit because they just can't handle it. And I've wanted to quit sometimes. There's a huge difference between working in the studio and being creative inside of your head and making a piece, and then the moment that piece is over with, getting on the phone, getting online, sending emails, communicating with people, pounding the pavement, visiting galleries, dealers, consultants, clients, getting told one thing, and then 24 hours later getting told another, and then 24 hours later finding out that person just came out of the asylum that you spoke to. I mean, it's just like...
It's all the things that don't feel like art or creativity.
It's beyond ridiculous. I could tell you stories. Well, we're on TV, I might as well. But that you would be like, did that really happen, or was that in an episode of Seinfeld? It's like, no, it really happened, and it's so ridiculous, and people laugh, and they should laugh. But I'm like, yeah, but when it happens to you, it's awful. So I would love to be in the position where I'm just doing the creative, and having somebody else handle, the business end of it. But then, if you're in that position, you don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
And one day you might wake up and be involved in something that you don't want to have anything to do with. So that happens too. But I shouldn't complain. I mean, I'm lucky. I've been doing it this long. I'm not a huge success, but I'm not, living on the streets. So I'm going to keep going, and yeah, it's been good so far. You know what? I do have complaints, but it's my right to complain as an American, right?
Absolutely.
I love to complain more than I like to say something's great and good.
It's funny. I was with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about, I saw this guy on TV, and his family's not doing well, or this person died, or this person's sick, and we really shouldn't complain. I'm like, yeah, but how bad do things have to get before it's okay to complain?
Right.
You know what I mean? But I shouldn't complain.
I don't know. I feel like my memory is so bad that I have to continually state the things that need to change.
Sure.
And those usually come in the form of repeated complaints. What were you going to say?
Huh? Oh, basically
Steamrolling.
The same thing. I think, I don't know. I think it's not a bad thing to be complaining, because otherwise, it's almost like when you're like a group of people inside of a company, like if the workers are not discussing with each other what each worker is making, then the people above them have all the power because they're pitting all the lower level people against each other. So I feel like, if you're talking about things that are not right or could be better in whatever, if you want to call it an industry you're in, then I think that's a good thing, because then things could get better, or at least people know what is wrong with it so that maybe they could change it.
Well, another thing I found is that I have a lot of people that I work with, different fabricators, welders, things like that. and I'll go into their shop, and for the first 10 minutes, it's whatever's not going well. So it's the complaint, but I'm kind of the psychiatrist, and I do the same thing to them when they come visit me. So maybe that's sort of how it all starts. Is in order to work creatively with another creative person, you have to vent a little bit, and then everybody's, all right, the tension is released, and now we can get to doing some good work, I guess. So.
Yeah. So how did you just go and look for, like, sometimes when you're trying to do a thing that's more on the industrial side, like I need this thing CNC machined, or I need this thing like laser cut. I've been in the position a bunch of times where it's like you're calling around to all these places that are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, because they make a real, like, a car part, or they make like a hinge or something that people want, and they're like, what are you talking? Like, you have to explain like a lot of things before they are like, oh, okay, like.
Well, nowadays,
do that.
Well, the way to do it is, first of all, go through word of mouth. So try to find a place that does what you want, and try to find it through another artist, so that you know that they'll be artist friendly. The second thing is to have a software that you could render images, whether they're 2D or 3D or whatever, and I use Illustrator. So render an image for them. Have that image labeled with measurements. Give them a file, and email it to them or whatever, text it to them. That's the way to do it. So everybody that I've ever worked with, I found through other artists and other woodworkers and steel people. Because just cold calling, you're not going to get anybody that's legitimate. You're going to get people that are going to be like, well, right now I'm just going to tell you I got a job running, and the setup costs for you are going to be $800 without even looking at the thing. It's going to be $800 setup. What is setup? What are you talking about? And you're going to be going around in circles. And I've dealt with a lot of people like that. But all the people that I've dealt with where I've been introduced to them, they're like, oh, I can do that. And just here's what I need from you specifically. And,
and kind of learning to speak whatever language that they're used to speaking, and giving them like the appropriate items, like you said, like the file type that they want, that they're used to, that they don't have to do a ton of work to like make it meet what they need.
That's the thing, is the less they have to do, the better. If they have to do design work, it's $80 to $120 an hour. And I've had to have some of that because I just couldn't get around it. Because sometimes when I'm hanging hundreds and hundreds of star pieces, I need templates made so that they'll hang properly. Well, that's not something that I could do. He had to do it. My fabricator had to design it, and I would get a bill. But once it's designed, I could have that template replicated over and over again, and I had to have that. I had a client in Italy that had the same kind of installation, so I just made the client a template from that file, and it was easy to do. But you have to learn tech speak or whatever it is. But usually they're pretty cool. And again, they'll tell you right off the bat that they work with artists. Without that, you run the risk of getting things made that are unusable. I met with some CNC people, gosh, this was back in 2006 for a big project that I wanted to do. And the way a CNC machine works is it's a computer router that comes down and cuts parts. Well, if you want a geometric shape, say a square, you have to tell them that you want the router to go down, cut across, come up, reposition, go down, cut across, come up, and so on and so on. So you get sharp quarters. Otherwise, it's going to go like that, and you're going to have rounded quarters. Well, they were going to do that. Right? And then, so I finally met with a guy in Waterford, and he was like, no, there's a whole thing that you have to go over with in order to get exactly what you want. You have to use certain MDF and certain routers, and it's a whole thing. So you have to be very, very specific. With my stars, the laser loops around the points. It happens in a millisecond.
Oh, yeah.
But if it didn't do that, it would go like that. If it did that, the points would be rounded. And my first samples that I got were rounded. So I said, no, I need them to be sharp, like ninja sharp, that they'll stick into somebody's flesh.
So it needs to cut like this way and then like this way or something?
No, it just loops. The laser will go loop, it'll go loop, and then loop, and it happens like within half a second.
So are you getting really these other people to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you getting the experts in using that device, they are doing this programming for you? Like, you're just kind of telling them, here's what it needs to end up looking like, and then
Yes.
they do that other part?
Yeah, they do that other part, but again, you have to be really specific, and sometimes I feel like I'm driving them up the wall. And even if I get like another run months later, I'll tell them the exact same thing I told them the first time. I'm about to have some clips duplicated, and the clips are welded to the backs of the stars so they could be hung on a wall, and the wall has an opposite clip that it fits into. So I'm going to mail my fabricator an old clip, and I'm going to say, duplicate this exactly. And so it's effortless. You don't need files. You don't need to explain anything. It's just like, copy this. But you have to be complete. It's like anything else. When I'm doing design work using Illustrator, and 50 stages down the line, I'm like, oh my God, what the hell happened? This is completely ruined. It's because 50 stages ago, I alone told the computer to do something that was wrong. So I have to trace back my steps, but the computer only does what I tell it to do.
Right.
It doesn't do what it wants, what it feels like. So you have to be really specific in these cases, otherwise you're going to be wasting money. Right now I have old parts that I'm trying to reuse, like 1,000 of them, and they were all done incorrectly. So at the last minute I had to have new parts made, but I'm learning how to reuse them. Yeah, so, you learn that lesson once, and then hopefully you don't repeat it.
It's the Soft Stars series with no hard points on them.
They have to be hard. I have 3 samples that aren't, but I've had them fall off. I was telling somebody this story the other day. I was working on one, and it fell off and stuck into the floor. So, nice. And I had to pull it out of the floor and then redo the tip part. But no, they're deadly.
That sounds like it could have resulted in a children's hospital visit.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, when we were installing the ones over there, we had to be very careful so that the points weren't sticking out. So we actually installed them on an angle so the points were flush with the wall. And a few days after we installed them, there was the family opening, and there were thousands of people, and they were like all in their winter coats, so these down-filled winter coats, brushing against them. None of the coats got ripped open, nobody got hurt or anything like that. And then there was the VIP opening. There was one opening after another for a solid week, and not a scratch, nothing happened. So you got to be mindful of that too. When you're dealing with the private collector, they're like, no, I want the point sticking out. It's going to be a ninja star. It's going to be awesome. It's like, whatever you want, sir. But yeah, in a public place, you got to be really careful because they're steel. You don't mess with steel, right?
No.
Unless you're bending it to your will to show your greater artistic expression.
Maybe that's what I'll do next, is start bending them. I don't know. I think I know what's going on, and I think I know what's going to happen next, and 24 hours later it all changes. That's something that I don't think I'll ever get used to. Because I really like to, in my mind and on paper, really map everything out. And it never, ever works out that way, ever. Ever, ever, ever. And it's enough to drive you up the wall, really.
I think that's good in a way, though, because sometimes my plan is pretty cut and dry and pretty boringly straightforward, and the way it turns out in reality is far more surreal and whimsical and rich with meaning and dissonance and strangeness than the plan ever was.
It would be great if it was like that every time, and sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But actually more than often it isn't. And sometimes creatively it isn't. I was working on a piece a few months ago, and digitally it looked great. And when I painted it, I was like, this is awful. And I was like stripping whole sections off of the steel and redoing it in using different colors, frantically buying new colors that I've never used. Because I use different brands of spray paint. I have about 165 colors that I use, which you'd think is a lot, but I wish there were more that I could use. And it looked horrible. I was like, wow, what was I thinking? And how could this that on my phone that looks so great in reality look like garbage? What am I going to do? So, but then I fixed it, and it turned out to be one of the better pieces.
Nice.
Cool.
But I would just rather have everything just predetermined. No headaches. It's kind of like you're going on a vacation, you're going to Miami, And in between Detroit and Miami, you have technical issues with the plane, and you land in a cornfield. That's how I feel. And I feel like that almost every day.
You go, this is my cornfield.
Yeah, I hate the cornfield. I do not eat corn. I hate corn. I hate fields. Get me out of here. It's not fair. I hate it. But the only other option is to get an RJ, a real job.
Right. But you support yourself just being an artist?
Yeah, I do.
That's fantastic.
That's the greatest. That's the greatest accomplishment.
I do. I live. I'll be honest. I'm very frugal. I'm not a big spender. But yeah, so far so good. But I'd rather be doing so far so great.
Right.
You know. So that's what I'm working on. Aren't we all? Don't we all want to better ourselves?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, and do better and have more money so we can create more artwork. That's what people are like. If you had money, what would you do? I'd make bigger paintings, big sculptures.
It's like, what have you done with any of the money that you've ever gotten from art? Like any money I've ever gotten goes immediately back into buying more like equipment and supplies.
It
like,
sure
right
does.
away.
Wouldn't it be great to go to an art supply store and just go nuts? Just buy every color, buy every this, buy stuff you don't need.
I'd like to go to the factory, go to the CNC place and buy everything.
Right.
Go to the paint factory. I'd like to visit the Golden Acrylic factory in New Berlin, New York one of these days. I've been on the phone with them many a time. But yeah, that would just be great. That's why I play the lottery.
Yeah?
I do. I play Mega and Powerball twice a week. So that's $6 a week. And one of these days, when I'm 99 years old,
Buy the
I'm going to win. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy a new body, because by then they'll have like Walmart and Target bodies.
That's what I'm planning on.
Go in and get a new body.
It's more possible than ever.
But the new body will cost as much as my winnings, and I'll have no money. But I'll have my health and my youth.
You'll get to do it again. Have
Exactly.
art too.
The whole thing over again. I don't know. I don't know if I could handle it again.
I think we're on the verge of living forever. I'd like to hope so.
I think so too. I've had many conversations with people about that, and they think that I'm crazy. I think what people don't realize is that if you take care of yourself, if you eat right and get plenty of sleep every night, but seriously, if you don't abuse your body, and that'll give you some time to get to the next plateau where they have some kind of breakthrough.
Well, everybody at home, I hope you don't abuse your bodies either.
Yeah,
and
don't abuse.
to all of us,
if you're going to abuse your bodies, don't get caught.
don't get caught. And thank you for watching.